Welcome back to my section of interview cosplayer. Right now is with me my big friend Captain Rogers, Mr. Fazgardian from Mr. Grand.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I appreciate you having here.
Good to be here.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's been quite a weird time right now with what's going on in the world, but it's great to escape into things like this right now.
Okay, I really appreciate that you escaped from Hydra and stuff from Hydra. I mean stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't mind, we start the interview.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question is: have you made another interview before of cosplay before this one?
I don't think so. I had a quick 10-second chat with somebody at a convention once, but nothing like this at all.
Okay, I hope you like this one. And do you consider yourself a nerd, a geek, in a special way?
Definitely a geek and a nerd. I've been into superheroes for as long as I can remember. I've always been really into the Marvel movies, really like the DC ones, watch all the TV shows. Obviously, as you can see, I probably am a bit more of a fanboy than the average person. So yeah, definitely a nerd or a geek.
And where does this influence come from?
That's a good question. I think I've always been drawn to superheroes, whether I was reading books, watching TV, and just as you go, you just see things that you really like, right? Like the Mandalorian TV show, for example, like pretty much all the Marvel movies. Like you see a superhero or you see some sort of person that you just connect with, and that's kind of how that fandom starts.
And we're gonna start a little bit from the past. Do you remember the first event you went to?
I went to, it would have been Fan Expo Canada,
Mhm.
and it was probably in 2015, 2016, something like that.
And do you remember the last one you went to?
The last one I went to was Ace Comic-Con Midwest in Chicago. That was in 2019, October.
And from all the events that you have gone through, which one is the one you remember most or you appreciate most?
There's two for sure. So I'm a big fan of the Green Arrow, and in 2017 I got to meet Stephen Amell, who plays the Green Arrow at Fan Expo Canada. So that one for me is really, really cool. Like, he signed my bow. We got a photo together. It was a really cool experience. He had a panel. It was great. So that one's probably a nice runner-up. But the one for sure that I remember the most was the Ace Comic-Con in October, because I got to meet Chris Hemsworth in my Thor suit, and he got to take a look at my Stormbreaker. We had a bit of a chat. It was phenomenal.
The God of Thunder himself. And there is an event that you would like to go, I mean, locally or international, or that you couldn't go because of work or...
So one that I was really looking forward to was in March, Ace was doing another event starring Chris Evans. So that was my first reason to get this suit all set up, so I could meet him in March. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but I'm sure they'll have him in the future, and I'll make sure to be there to meet him in this.
We hope so too. We hope so. And is there something that you envy that other convention or events do, that would you like to make them also to the events that you go?
Sorry, you mean what are the
something that you envy
that make me want to go?
Yes, something like that.
So the best conventions for me, I think, Fan Expo Canada is in Toronto, so that's one of the biggest cities in Canada. It's close to me, so it's the biggest event around me. So I really like to go and connect with all of my costuming friends that I've met throughout the years, get to kind of catch up with them, see how it's going. So I really like that event for that. And then the Ace Comic-Cons keep getting A-list staff, A-list people. So there's Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Tom Hiddleston. You'll see a lot of Avengers, right? But really, for me, it's the talent, it's the art. I love the art at the conventions, the costuming, the cosplaying, and really just being within that community and getting to really enjoy other people loving something as much as I do.
And when you go to this convention, you like to go with people? It doesn't matter if it's the same theme, or do you like to go rather alone?
I definitely prefer to go with people. I usually go with my buddies who don't costume, and then they just kind of get to see that world from my perspective, and they really like that. Or I'll go and meet up with a few buddies who are costuming. There's a few different ways we do it. I usually force my girlfriend to come with me. She's not as into it as I am, but she's very generous with her time, and she helps me the entire time.
And talking about friends that do not do cosplay, have you tried to convince someone to make cosplay?
I have. There's a few that are waiting on the opportunity. They are planning on building something eventually.
Mhm.
Feeling pretty good about that. I've started to convince people to kind of switch over.
And when there's like this kind of events in your city, how it is? Do you think it's well advertised? It's not well advertised? How do you think it is?
I think the big ones, like the ones in Toronto, are fairly well advertised. You get emails about them. You see them all over Instagram and Facebook and stuff. But the smaller you get, the harder it is to know they're even going on. I didn't even know about the ones in my own city until last year, and that's when I started going to them in 2019. So that's really too bad. I really wish that I could have known about them beforehand. I would have been for a lot more years instead of just last year.
And what do you think about the events? Did they improve or they get worse?
Every one I've been to has been better than the last one. The ones in Toronto every year gets bigger and better. They get more guests, they get more artists, they get more things to do. They get more cool things like video games to try out. They always get bigger and better, and I really appreciate that about it.
Man, that sounds good. Sounds good. So let's say you have to go. And do you always try to wear a cosplay on the events, or do you try to go?
So I always go at least one day in costume. Depending on what's going on, I might want to be out of costume one day and then in costume another, but always at least one. If I only go one day, I will definitely be in costume the whole time. If I go 2 or 3, then at least 1, probably 2 of the days I'll be dressed up.
And do you like to, or do you try to at least wear a new cosplay, or do you like to repeat cosplay?
It depends. My Thor costume is my favorite of all of my costumes. I try to wear that one as much as I can. So that one I've worn at a lot of different places. In general, when I have a couple to try out, I'll try to bring a new one every so often. So for Fan Expo in Canada, I wore like my Arrow suit, then I wore my Thor suit, then I wore my Arrow suit, kind of like rotating back and forth. If it's the same event, I try not to repeat. And it also depends on the guest. So for the convention in Boston, I was going to be wearing this because Chris Evans would be there. When I was in Chicago, I was going to wear the Thor suit. I did wear the Thor suit to meet Chris Hemsworth, right? It's when Stephen Amell was in Canada, I wore the Arrow suit. It's kind of it doesn't matter to me. It's more who's there. Yeah.
Depending on the guest, you dress up for the occasion.
Exactly. Got to dress to impress.
And when you and when you go to the events, do you wear your cosplay from home, or do you suit up on the event?
So this sort of suit, I would suit up before going, and then I would go. If it was my Thor suit, I usually go about halfway and then put on like the chest armor and the arm things and stuff like that when I get there, just because driving is very difficult when you've got a big foam suit on. But for something like this, not a big deal. The Arrow suit, same thing. I'll be mostly dressed up, just put the quiver on when I get there, like the back thing for the suit. That's basically how I would do it. There's been a few times that I've subwayed in the full Arrow suit and scared people. They either think it's really cool or they're very, very afraid. There's no real middle ground there.
It happened. And have you competed in a contest?
I have.
Yes, and how's the experience?
Competitions have been very good so far. It's been a very positive experience. Like I would have expected it to be more negative, more like judgmental, but it's a nice time. Like everybody's very positive and everybody focuses just on the positives. Everybody's there to have fun. It's not too competitive, there's not people trying to take other people down. It's just a very enjoyable experience, I think.
Yeah, positive in every aspect, you mean. Mm-hmm. And have you won?
I have.
You have? Huh? Okay. And at the end, when we join this kind of world, that we end to buy stuff or collecting stuff. What would you say is your most valuable gift you have buy to yourself?
Most valuable thing. Well, I have the Stormbreaker I made. Mm-hmm. That's it was a 3D print, so it wasn't very expensive to make, but now it's worth absolutely the world to me. So that for sure would be a very expensive thing. And the other thing I have now is a Mjolnir, the Thor's hammer signed by Chris Hemsworth. I think that would be worth the most.
Yeah.
In terms of the most expensive thing I've bought, I'm not really sure. I tend to thrift as much as possible. I'll get, this is a secondhand costume that I upgraded. The helmet was a $30 helmet that I then painted and added a bunch of pieces to. So I think really not more than a couple $100 would be the most that I've spent personally on something. And then from there, we'll see how it goes.
Nice. And which is your most valuable gift that somebody else has given you?
Someone else has given me.
Yeah.
That's a good question. My buddy was done with his Thor Ragnarok suit. He didn't have space for it anymore. So just for the cost of mailing it to me, he gave me his suit. So that's there's a helmet there. There's a entire armor. There's a big shield. There's like a couple swords, a bunch of stuff to it. So that thing would be worth a lot of money on its own. But he just wanted to get rid of it. So I think that would be the most expensive thing for me.
We need those kind of friends more.
Yeah, those are the best kind of friends to have.
Yeah. And we're gonna speak about your first cosplay. Which was it?
So my first cosplay would have been an arrow suit. It was much different than the one that I currently have. It was just bought off of eBay and then just like assembled with random pieces I could find at the dollar store and whatnot and try to make it work. Yeah.
And you know that there's always like a line that we need to cross because there's like a lot of insecurities or shame. And what makes you cross the line that makes you think that now I'm gonna wear the cosplay to the event, and what makes you cross that line?
So for a couple years, I'd always said that I wasn't really a cosplayer. I just liked to costume at events, or I like to dress up for Halloween, things like that. And I actually talked to my buddy. My buddy who doesn't cosplay, he doesn't costume, he and I had a really nice conversation about how it shouldn't matter what you call it, it shouldn't matter what people think, and that it should just be what you want to do. And what I did was I went to the Toronto Comic-Con convention, and when I was there, I had a photo shoot done with a very nice photographer, and at that point, when I had professional photos, I was like, all right, I'm going to make an Instagram account, I'm going to be a costumer, I'm going to be a cosplayer, we're going to just go with it, this is what I am. I made the suit myself, I had done the photo shoot. I went to conventions with it. That was it. I was a cosplayer. And that was how I got that.
That's the point of no return.
Definitely.
And when you make your cosplay, do you ask for help? Do you buy stuff, or do you try to make them all by yourself?
So I always start trying to make something myself. A lot of stuff is impossible to do though. Like this suit is a expertly sewn and crafted suit by a company called White Sheep Leather. They make Captain America suits. They do a great job with it. The ones that I think are the absolute best are Leather Fashion Valley. They're another cap suit. So for a cap suit, I'd never try to make it myself. For Thor, I was able to find some templates and make it myself out of foam. But there were still pieces here and there that I purchased. Like I grabbed the Stormbreaker 3D printed kit. So it came in like 14 pieces and I had to put it together. But someone still made that kit for me, right? So I think I always attempt first to make everything on my own and see what happens. But if I need to buy something and then I can fix it up afterwards, I'm always happy to do that, as long as I can find the best deal.
And do you have someone to help you?
I do. So firstly and foremostly, my girlfriend, who's I'm extremely happy to have her help with. She helps get me into all the suits. She takes me to and from conventions. But more than that, like she sewed my Thor cape. She helped me like make sure things were looking right. She makes sure that everything is sitting correctly. On the cap suit, she's actually the one who glued on these new stripes because I was in the suit as like a mannequin, so she had to sew them on. She's risking her fingers with the heat and the Gorilla Glue, right, to make sure that I've got it there. So her for sure. Beyond that, I have a few costuming friends that I look up to and I ask for, depending on the suit I'm doing. So for Thor, I have a few Thor buddies who, when I was building the suit, I would check in with and see how they did it. For Captain America, this suit here, I talked to my buddy Zach Neal a lot. I talked to my buddy Toronto Star-Lord, and the three of us would figure it out. For all the 3D things, I talked to my buddy Joe Land Props, and he tends to give me a lot of tips on how to make those things better, how to finish them, how to paint them, stuff like that. And yeah, the community is extremely helpful and extremely willing to share how they succeeded in making their things, and they're always happy to help out.
That sounds good. And do you think that cosplay, do you think you give cosplay enough time, or cosplay has taken time from other things that you did?
I don't think it's taken too much time. The cap suit was done, like it was hours and hours of work, but it was done very like sparingly over 3 or 4 months. It started shortly after Endgame and ended shortly before Halloween. So for that, like that was like a 4-month time frame, right? Maybe 5 months. So I think It definitely has the potential to fully take over your life.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't, as long as you keep the balance, it's a really enjoyable, fun, extra hobby to do without something too crazy. I mean, I post on Instagram almost every day. I have photo shoots frequently. I'm editing photos. I'm having people edit them. So like it's taking a lot of time for sure. But I don't think it needs to be too much time as long as you kind of limit yourself and not let yourself go overboard.
Okay, and what do you think about your start in cosplay? You think that you start soon, late, or at the right moment?
I think I started at the right time. When I had started with that first aero suit, costuming was still, it wasn't mainstream. People would be like kind of made fun of and judged for it pretty hard at that point. So that was what kind of made it tough for me to be like, well, I'm being judged. I was a teenager at the time. I think I was like 16, 17. So I was really caring what people thought. And then as we went, it became more and more mainstream to the point where it can just be a thing that you do. I can just be a guy who works, plays sports, goes to the gym, and dresses up as Captain America on weekends. It's the golden age to do this, I think. People are much more accepting of it. The celebrities themselves really enjoy it, and I think it's just it's a really good time to get into it right now.
Nice. And do you have like a workplace where you build the cosplays?
So not really. I've always lived in apartments since I went away to school, so I don't have a lot of space. I'll have like half of my dining room table, then my girlfriend just has to put up with that half of the table being covered in foam and stuff over the course of the build. But eventually I'd like to have an actual workspace for sure. That's kind of a long-term goal, yeah.
And when you work, do you have you're a tidy person?
While building, not as much as I'd like to be. I don't think I'm necessarily dirty. It's tough with like little pieces of foam being cut off or like glue being left everywhere, paint being around. I don't think I'm dirty per se, but I wouldn't really say I'm tidy.
Half and half. And what do you do when you build your cosplay? Do you listen to music? Do you watch TV?
I'm usually watching YouTube videos, seeing how people did it, or I'm like really closely looking at the thing that I'm trying to cut out or the thing I'm about to glue, reading the instructions on the various things I'm using. If I'm just painting or something like that, I might listen to something, but usually even then I'll try to be really focused and I'll be like completely quiet and just like quietly painting, you know?
And when you start a cosplay, a new one, do you start with excited, or do you start with asceticism and like I'm gonna cry or I'm gonna be happy, depending on how it goes?
It's always a really laid back, fun thing for me. It's like costuming for me is like a distraction. It's like a fun way to spend some time to relax and just like enjoy crafting. If it doesn't work out the way I want it to be perfectly, that's okay. I'll just do it again. If something's not exactly perfect, that's fine. It's good enough for me, right? So yeah, I haven't really had an experience where I've been like, oh, this is impossible, I'm so angry. Instead, it's been more like, okay, how can I fix this? We got this. We're trying it out. It's cool. For most of the time, I haven't been making things for that long. So if I make a mistake, it's the first time I've tried something. So that's totally okay with me. I just need to know in my head that it's a first attempt on something I've never done before, and just enjoy the ride.
And do you talk about this outside the cosplay world or outside your friend, when you met someone or maybe a job that you speak about that you make cosplay?
Not in jobs. A couple of my friends at work do know that I do this, so it's not a secret or anything. Like I have an Instagram account dedicated to it. It's like a normal conversation thing. All of my friends in school knew it when I was in post-secondary school, just because at that stage of the game, like I would wear it to Halloween and things like that, and they would just be able to tell pretty easily. But it comes up in casual conversation here and there. It's just like an ordinary thing. We'll talk about basketball. We'll talk about Captain America. It's just,
a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And what does your family think about this and your friends?
My friends think it's cool. They think it's a lot cooler now that there's an Instagram account for it. At first, it was just like, oh, Faz is always sitting here dressing up and making us go to these conventions with him. But now it's like, oh, people know him. He knows them. He's got like a whole community here. It's kind of cool, right? They get to meet my buddies who I've spoken to virtually, and then we all kind of like the friend circle grows from there, right? My family thinks it's cool. Again, to a point, they might want me to do a little bit less, but that's like they're definitely supportive of it. And yeah, it's all in all, I think everybody has fun with it. No one takes it too seriously.
And is there like a cosplayer, famous or not, that you like to know or that you have met?
Well, the most impressive and most down to earth, kind of like legit cosplayer, like one of those famous ones, would be Silhouette Cosplay. She made from scratch an originally designed Loki costume, and it has like 15 different fabrics. She uses like leather. She did all the sewing and all the work herself. Like there's foam in it, I think. It's just phenomenal.
Crazy.
And she is the nicest person I've ever met. She's very down to earth. She wants to chat about things. She acts like your stuff is cool when compared to hers it's just nothing, you know. So that for sure would be the one I think is the coolest one that I'm happiest to know for sure.
And what do you think about being a famous cosplayer? Would you like to be one, or what do you think about being famous?
I think it'd be cool. I think that if I was going to be a famous cosplayer, I would want to be the kind that's known for helping people. I want to be like the ones that share all the photos when people tag them, the ones that respond to every direct message they get, trying to help people out, the ones who give advice as to how to improve their builds, right? Those are the people that I really appreciate and I really look up to. And that's the kind, if I was going to be that kind of cosplayer, that's what I'd want to be.
And what do you think about the cosplay community? Do you think that is getting worse, have improved, is it still the same?
I think it's getting better and better the more people get involved in it. There's always going to be the drama. There's always going to be the issues that come with it. But with any group of people this big, I think that's going to happen, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter if we're talking about costuming or we're talking about sports or we're talking about games. It doesn't matter what the thing is. There's always going to be fights. There's always going to be issues. But I think that the more people that join it, the more mainstream it becomes, the bigger it gets, the more fun it becomes. And I think it can only get better. I think that's what it's doing for sure.
And would you like to cosplay to have more importance outside in the world?
I think it's like I said before, I think it's like kind of at the peak of where it's ever been for importance wise. So I think it's at a pretty good spot right now. It's like a sport that some people do, right? It's an activity some people do. It doesn't need to be better than any other activities, just like a fun activity some of us do. And I think it's mainstream enough. Nobody judges it. It's more of a fun thing that a lot of people do. And I think it's at a really good spot in terms of prominence and importance.
And now we're going to talk about pictures. Do you like to be asked for photos?
Sure. Oh, at conventions, I love to, especially with children. Whenever I can get a little kid, like if I'm dressed like Thor and a kid comes up to me dressed as Thor or Loki and asks me for a photo, I love that stuff. That's the stuff that makes it entirely worthwhile. With adults too, but kids, it's like if I'm dressed as Captain America and a little Bucky Barnes runs over and asks for a photo, then you say a couple things, "Oh, Bucky, I was looking for you." Then the kid lights right up. It's just that's the best part of the day for sure at any convention.
And the poses for the pictures, do you practice them or they are spontaneous?
There's a few for each character that I've practiced with. Like there's certain ways to hold the shield to make sure it doesn't have a weird angle to it or anything. So you have to look in a mirror and make sure you've got that down. Or like raising the hammer to make sure that it's like raised the correct way. There are a few things like that I would definitely try. If I was ever to do Spider-Man, I'd have to practice for hours and hours and hours to get the right kind of the flexibility involved. I don't know if I can pull that off. But in general, I think it's more just like whatever you have holding, you hold them. If there's somebody like there, you might put your arm around them. That's about it.
Okay.
So more spontaneous.
Okay. And what types of characters do you like to see in the events? People wearing cosplay like from Star Wars, Marvel.
So I like to see, like me personally, I'm a big Marvel fan. I'm a big DC fan. I like Star Wars a lot. So anytime I see a really cool cosplay from one of those fandoms, I light right up. It's super cool. But really, like I want to see as wide of a range as possible. And that's why those bigger conventions are really cool, because you'll see a million Marvel cosplayers, then you'll see a million Harry Potter cosplayers, and you'll see a bunch of people that I don't even know who they are because it's something I've never heard of, but it's super cool, right? So I really want to see as wide of a range as we can get.
And when you make your cosplay, do you have like a list of them and you're following the list, or they appear from nowhere, or a bit of both?
A bit of both. Sometimes I make a list of like what I would like to do.
Hmm?
Like I look at one and I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's think about that. But usually it'll be more like I've watched a TV show, I've fallen in love with said TV show, and now I've got to do the thing, right? So, be like I watched Captain America: Winter Soldier, and ever since then I've thought to myself, I really want a stealth suit. I want to do a Captain America suit like that one. Being that I'm not American, it was the coolest Captain America suit for me without the big flag on it. And then eventually here we are 6 years later, and I've got the suit, right? I loved the show Arrow growing up, so it was always I really wanted to do that, and then I did it. I loved Thor, especially Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame, so I really needed to make a Thor suit, and then I did, right? There's usually a list, and that list never gets followed, and it just becomes whatever I've seen recently that I've really, really enjoyed.
The last thing I saw. And when you pick a character, it always like match with your attitude or your personality, or you make like if I could, I'll be that evil because I like to be a villain.
I think no, everybody that I've done as a costume, I can find some characteristics that I share with them. Mm-hmm. That'll be usually why I like them. But they're definitely they're wide-ranging people, right? Like I don't think there's a certain type of character where I'm like that one. I'm doing that kind of costume. It's more like there's a thing about each type. Like maybe the leadership qualities of the Arrow or Captain America, right? The fun-loving like space pirate type stuff that Thor has going on. Like there's a lot of stuff that draws me to the characters. Mm-hmm. Also, how the people are behind the characters, the actors can make a difference. If someone like if Chris Evans wasn't a very nice guy, for example, I'd find a hard time being a Captain America, having a Captain America costume. But because he's so cool, that just adds to the allure of doing it, I think. Yeah.
Nice. And is there something that you had to learn to make cosplay?
Oh, lots and lots. I've never painted things before, except for like what you would do in school. So painting this helmet, I had to like think about that a lot. My girlfriend paints, so she taught me a bit, so I could do that. For Stormbreaker, I'd never worked with a 3D print before, so I had to learn how to correctly sand and weather and things like that, like how to prime it. For these sorts of straps, I had to cut them a specific way and assemble them a certain way. For pretty much, like it's constant learning. It's constant learning curve. It's like any other arts and craft where you just have no talent in it until you've tried it a few times. Even the Thor suit itself, it was an EVA foam suit. Never done anything like that before, so I had to figure it out. My parents didn't even believe that I did it. They thought I bought it. They were like, "I can't believe you bought another suit. This is ridiculous. You don't need to do that. You should just make this yourself." And I was like, "I did. This one was me."
Surprise!
Yeah.
And was something that you knew that came handy before making cosplay, or did you start from the start?
Well, I've always had an attention to detail when it comes to things like this. In terms of working with my hands, I've always been kind of okay, not great. Mm-hmm. But with that attention to detail, I would do it, and I would know that if I didn't like it, and I would just do it again, you know? So a lot of trial and error, not being afraid to fail, and just being willing to keep on practicing until I got it to a place that I was happy with it, was something that really helped me, I think.
And what would you like to learn and to improve from things you know?
I would love to start leatherworking. Seeing some of the costumes that people have made out of leather just blow my mind. Foam you can get kind of close, but it's no competition to a good leather built suit. Like especially for things like Thor, half of his suits are entirely leather. I have absolutely zero leather skills, so I've always done them via foam. Leather would be a phenomenal thing to try and play around with, but it's expensive, so I need to do a lot more learning and practicing before I even take that plunge.
Okay. And what advice would you give to a person that is willing to enter this world and is kind of shy or maybe doesn't know where to start?
I think check out the Replica Prop Forum. Mm-hmm. It's there's a Facebook group and it's also its own website. It's a great place to get started to learn details. You can join some groups for characters you're interested in. Like I'm in a group called Emerald Archers for the Green Arrow. Build a Better Captain America is where I did to build most of the cap suit. There's a few cosplayers of Valhalla helps with Thor suits. So there's a lot of resources out there. You can message people like myself and anybody else who's made the costumes to see how they've done it, and they might give you some advice on what to do. You can watch YouTube videos. There's a lot of stuff out there now that you can use to try to figure out the way that you want to get started.
And the veterans, what advice would you give to the veterans?
To the veterans, just keep having fun with it. Sometimes it stops being a hobby and starts being like a job or a stressful thing. And I think if it's stressing you out, then that's time to take a breather, right? That's time to kind of pull back, take a few days off, and just enjoy it, right? Like a lot of people have burnouts at some point where they just, the con crunch, trying to get it done in time is just too much. They're too stressed out. They don't want to do it anymore. And I think if you just treat it as like a fun, enjoyable thing you're doing, then you'll be much better off.
And since now you mention it, what do you think is worse? Not finishing the cosplay on time or get it like broke in the middle of the event?
Broke in the middle of the event, for sure. Because if it's not done in time, you can wear something else. Or you can wear like a nice t-shirt. And you've already gotten over that in your head. You figured it out. You fixed the problem to the best you can, right? But during the convention, if something breaks, you're just stuck with something broken. That's super unfortunate.
And what material or what makeup or something special that you would recommend to people that you like work with?
Well, I still think EVA foam is just so versatile. It's such a great building material because you can make it look like metal, you can make it look like leather, you can make it look like foam, like whatever you want to use as your base, it can look like that. I think that stuff is magic. I love Plastidip. It coats whatever you're working in like a nice rubberized coat that makes it safer and stronger, so that's super cool. In terms of makeup, I really like the stuff called Rigid Collodion, and it makes scars. So Thor has a scar on his eye, and what it does is it like pinches your skin sort of so that it looks like there's a scar there.
Oh, nice.
And then it just washes right off if you use that like remover. Be very careful with it because if you don't have the remover, it can permanently get stuck like that. But just make sure you have some remover around.
Yeah, okay. First the remover and then
cool
make
scars and injuries, yeah.
Or you will have a real injury.
Otherwise, you're taking this very seriously.
Okay, good advice. And what material you would not recommend? A makeup or something that you work with and you don't like? You didn't like?
So far, the most I've been able to say is that things were just okay. I've never had something that I was like, this is horrible. The EVA foam I use is usually from the dollar store. It's like little floor mats that they sell that are just cheaper than buying actual costuming EVA foam. So I think like if you can afford the better stuff, that's great. It is a little bit better than the other stuff. But if you can't, then work with what you've got because you can still have something cool out of it.
And is there like a cosplay that you would like to improve from the one that you have done?
I've been going on this is a funny time for this conversation because I've been doing that a lot recently. This suit I just finished upgrading. That's why I've unfortunately having to cancel on you until right now because I keep making this one perfect. I'm finally happy with it. My Thor suit went through a bunch of upgrades until it was finally ready. My Arrow suit, same thing. It's just finally ready now. I think it's more suits looking forward. Like I'd like to do a Thor Dark World suit. The Age of Ultron type look that has like the big T on it sort of. I want to do that one. I don't want to do it unless I do it well. Instead of just buying one, I want to make one that's really cool. But I think the suits I have, I've kind of worked up to the point where I'm happy with all of them.
And do you have like a cosplay that is always left behind because you start a new one, or do you like to start, or it's already started but appears a new one cosplay and then you left it behind?
A couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I made a Jon Snow suit. Just out of an old leather jacket and like some fabric from Fabricland. And I wore it to Fan Expo one year, and then I never wore it for anything ever again. I think I wore it to Halloween once, and it's just like I don't even know where it is anymore. It's just it was okay, but it wasn't up to kind of what I would like my costumes to be now. And now that the show's over, I don't have a huge amount of motivation to make a new one. So it's just kind of been left behind, yeah.
Poor Jon Snow.
Yeah.
And there's like do you have like an impossible cosplay, something that you cannot build because you don't have enough space, or it's too expensive, or because you don't have the ability to make it right now?
I would love to make an Iron Man suit eventually. A nice, like the one from Endgame, that Mark 85. But I usually work in foam, and I don't think you can do that suit justice unless if you make it in a 3D print. I don't have a 3D printer, I don't have the space for it. Someday I'd love to have one and I'd take a stab at it. But for now, I'm kind of stuck where I've seen some amazing foam ones. I am not good enough with foam to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm kind of stuck in the waiting for the time when I have a printer to be able to make that.
And when since you start making cosplay, have you stopped doing it, or do you in the future would you think that you would stop doing cosplay?
I can't imagine I'll stop. I'll probably slow down. I'll probably get rid of some old suits to make some new ones and go that way, so that I don't take over the entire house with a million costumes. But I think it can very much be a lifelong hobby, and it can be a thing that you do all the time, having fun with it here and there, right? Because it doesn't take over my entire life. I think I could keep doing it for forever and be perfectly happy with it.
And you mentioned it before with the kids. There's like you have like something funny that happens with your kids or with a father or mother. Something funny that would you like to share with us?
Something funny with kids. I don't know if I have a funny story. There's been a lot of stories of people at conventions. I'll be stopping and eating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll hear some kids trying to like get my attention, and I'll hear the parents have to be like, no, you gotta wait. Like, Thor, just you gotta let Thor have his sandwich first. He's been out doing something all day. You have to let Cap finish what he's doing. We can go bug him after. And then a couple minutes later, I'll be done eating the sandwich, and a bunch of kids will run over. So that's probably the funniest thing that happens to me. There was one time where a giant Pikachu showed up in front of me,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden I was surrounded by a bunch of kids wanting to meet the Pikachu, and then also I guess they thought I was kind of okay, but nothing compared to that giant Pikachu.
Yeah.
So that was a funny time.
And is there like a photographer that would you like to recommend to people that you have worked with?
Well, people from around here, I love using Timeless Memories by Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
She's in the London, Canada area, the GTA-ish area, and she's been phenomenal for me. She does most of my big shoots. In Toronto, there's a photographer called Drew Photographer who does an amazing job. And then apart from that, there's some amazing Toronto ones. Flaunty Mars is another great one. There's Kat McCabe I'm not sure, I think she's in Buffalo. She's in America. She does an amazing job. I haven't gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of people from other areas that just look amazing online that I'd love to. There are a lot of good costumers out there. There are a lot of good photographers out there. There are some amazing people out there.
And this is like a dream I share with all of you that come from the interview. And I'm gonna explain it a little to you because I know that they made this kind of stuff in different countries. And it's about that Star Wars has its own day, and everybody celebrates. And I thought we are cosplayers are a lot of people, and why we don't have like a cosplay day, but officially make one. But aside from Star Wars, aside from everything, just a cosplay day and make like parades and stuff and like dress the world in color with cosplay. What do you think about it, and would you like to participate in it?
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'd be down. I feel like it's sort of like what we have with conventions,
mm-hmm.
but it'd be like a giant outdoor convention. So sure, I'd be into that. It sounds like fun.
So now we're gonna talk about your personal taste with characters and stuff. Which one would you say that is your favorite character of all time?
Favorite character of all time? Thor.
There. Okay, that got a thunder. And favorite villain?
Ooh, Thanos.
Okay.
I was thinking about Loki, but he's not really a villain, whereas Thanos is a villain. Yeah, either Thanos or the Joker from The Dark Knight.
Okay, nice choice. And when you start like a TV show or a comic or whatever, which type of character do you like most, or which one do you look forward to?
It's really hard to tell. It's pretty random, I think. Like, usually I'm drawn to the main characters to start with, like the one who's like in the leadership role, the one who's like running the team or like helping everybody out, right? So I usually like that. Apart from that, just like as cool or as powerful as possible. Like for Thor, when he does like all of his lightning things, that's extremely impressive to me, right? Apart from all of that, something that's funny, like the way that Tony Stark is quippy and making jokes all the time, like I'm drawn to that. It really depends on the character. It's really no way to know ahead of time which one I'm like that one, but it happens more than you think.
Okay, and which book or comic or TV show or movie or whatever, something special would you like to recommend to people? Like, you cannot live this world without watching this or reading this.
Okay. I'll try to pick something that not everybody watches. So I'm not going to pick a Marvel movie because everybody's seen those at that point. No point in me recommending Avengers Endgame to you. I think that Arrow, season 1 to 3, is just a phenomenal superhero show. It's very dark. It's very there's a lot of murder and things like that. So it's not for young kids. But at some point, you should really give it a try. It starts off a little slow, and then when it gets going, it really gets going. Season 1 and 2 is just phenomenal, and season 3 is pretty great too. And I think if you love superheroes, you're doing yourself a disservice by not checking out Arrow.
Okay, so it's said. And finally, the last question. What power or ability would you like to have in real life from everything that you have seen?
One power or the powers of a person?
You choose. If you want one or the power of the person.
Powers of a person gotta go Thor. Living for crazy amounts of time, being basically indestructible, being able to go anywhere in the universe with your axe, right? All the lightning powers, hard to beat that. In terms of one power, I think I would want to be able to heal people.
Oh, nice.
I want to have super healing. I want to be able to use my hands and just go when now that person is their arm's not broken anymore. Things like that. I think whatever can help me help the most people would be what I want.
Nice power. So this is the last question, and we finished the interview. I really appreciate that you come with the cosplay dress for the event. Really honored. I feel really honored. And if there's something that you like to say before saying goodbye to the video.
Well, just thank you so much for having me. I would totally recommend a bunch of people get in here and then talk to you about it. And if you're planning on starting a costume, to anybody watching, do it. Get out there and give it a try.
Okay, you have the Mr. Rogers advice. Okay, so follow him. Okay, Mr. Rogers, an honor to have you here. I really enjoy it. So everybody else, thank you for watching, and the stuff, YouTube stuff. Okay, so bye.